Yeah.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to SDG for another lure build today. So those of you that are part of the SDG Custom Lurecraft Facebook group, and if you're not, you should be, link is down in the description, you saw me recently post a video by Gunnar Bramer. I am a student of his work. He's a fly guy, so he builds big streamers, musky flies, but he also builds the small stuff, goes after smallmouth bass, things like that. So yeah, he's a fly guy. He's fishing with a fly rod, but there's a lot of what he does that I try to translate or convert into bass, traditional bass tackle and bass applications. If you're not watching his channel, I highly suggest that you do. I don't know anybody else that's as good as he is with Bucktail. And here in the next month or two, he's going to put out a series of short form, very technique or very material focused or material specific videos. Everything you want to know about Bucktail, everything you want to know about how to control the flare of Bucktail, how to put it in different ways, hollow tie it versus standard, what's a bulkhead versus not. Some of that stuff is very fly specific, but as we'll see today, hopefully, I'm going to use one of his techniques, specifically this bulkhead design, at a different point or a different part in our build to try to accomplish a slightly different effect. For him, a bulkhead is just that. It's a bulk of extra bucktail at the front of a fly made to create bulk and push water. I want to use the same technique, but use it further back in the jig to create flare for our claws. So I'm still learning. He's way better at it than I am, maybe than I will ever be. But I think we can do this, and I think it's got some potential. So without further ado, let's jump into today's build. So in the vise, we've got a 3/8 ounce Arky head. I don't have a weed guard hole. We're going to use a wire weed guard with this guy. You can see it's two-tone. It's green pumpkin on the top and disco orange on the bottom. That is a 4/0 jig hook in there, Mustad 32-786, I believe, and the Victory has an equivalent to that. So either one of those will do. We're going to be tying with 210 denier flat wax nylon in olive today. So I'm going to start by laying down a thread base and taking that to each of the different segments. We're actually going to start down here. So it's good almost to the bend, and then kind of right in the middle. First element is going to be some antennas. So I'm going to put in two olive or green pumpkin strands of round rubber. Doesn't matter that these are super long because we'll cut them off. Kind of makes it nice because you can use your material clip there to hold them in place. So got those two in. Just like that. Snip off our excess. So from here, we want to start our two-tone bucktail jig. And I've got dark olive and, of course, orange for the bottom. This is the first step in how we're going to kind of convert a bulkhead technique to create flare. So I've got my bucktail here, but I need to move my thread back first. So I'm going to go ahead and move my thread back. I want it to be in the middle. Right here. That's where we're going to tie it in. So lengthwise, that's about a hook's length. So bringing that point right to the middle is about half a hook's length off the back. We're going to have claws that go beyond that, so we don't want this super long. We just want it to kind of extend beyond the bend of the hook. So we're going to tie this in right here. I want to hold on to it so that it doesn't go around the hook at all, but I do want it to come down along the sides. So a little bit down the sides, much like we do with silicone. A little bit down the sides is great, but we don't want it to go all the way around this time. So that looks really good. Pull it up. Going to leave that hair. This is just locking it in place, right? Coming behind it like that, and I should be able to let it go now, and it doesn't move. So that's step one. Flip it over, and we're going to do the same thing with our dark olive. And I'm actually going to flip this guy back around so I can measure it off against, so we have roughly the same length. So it's about there. I'm going to split it. Makes it easier to get around the hook. Hold it right in there. Again, just want to go down and meet that orange. Don't want to try to overlap anything. I'm always holding pressure on the bobbin. Otherwise, that bucktail will just pop loose and go everywhere. So that looks good. Let's get that down. I'm actually going to pull that back, come around underneath of it, and then pull this up. So that's just locking that green down so it doesn't move on me. There we go. I don't want all of this extra flare here. I actually want the purpose of this bucktail is twofold. One, we're going to hopefully get some flare out of what's left here, but I also want this to function as kind of the face of the craw. Down. There we go, just like that. Now we've collapsed that bucktail as a two-tone head. That looks good. Get that a couple more turns just to kind of lock it in place. So now we're back to the collar. So for a bulkhead, if you were to watch some of Gunner's videos, you apply the bucktail to the head, and the cut ends of the bucktail extend far beyond the hook eye. And then he folds that bucktail back, so you've got long bucktail with a little bit hanging over. Then he folds that bucktail back, and it creates that fold back creates extra bulk at the front of the fly. Then we'll talk about how he gets that from looking straight up to nice and bent, because we're going to do a little bit of that here, and then he just kind of trims it to make it look nice and feathers it into the rest of the fly. So all of this stuff that you see, all this extra, normally we would just cut that off because the only thing we want is the bucktail that you see. But in this case, I want to try to use that bucktail, cut just enough of it off, fold it back, and bend it back just a little, so that it's not, straight out from the hook. I don't want it 90 degrees. I want it bent back just a little for profile and flow, but I want it to stick out a bit, because then we're going to put the rabbit zonker claws in front of it. And the idea is that bucktail, the leftover that's kind of still sticking out, is going to sit right in between of these claws and force them out to make it a better profile. Typically we do this with yarn, with chenille, with dubbing, with any kind of different material that you can tie in right there. I'm just trying to accomplish the same thing with bucktail. So the first challenge of the day is getting this hair back. This is one of those areas where fly guys have a sighted advantage over us, because all they have in the front of the fly is a hook eye. So they can take a big pen, they can take any kind of small cylindrical something or other, slide it over that hook eye, and it just pushes all that hair back. We don't have that luxury because I've got a 3/8 ounce lead jig head in my way. So I'm going to do the best that I can with my fingers. Let's push this back. Sometimes you got to kind of work it, let it go, work it, let it go, and it starts to bend back for you. Get the bottom as well, if you can kind of get it back and hold on to it. Looks a little clumsy, I know. There we go. and then bring that straight through so you don't trap any as much as possible. And what I want to do from here, holding on to that bucktail, is I want to start building up this thread base right here. You're not going to see him take his thread and move it down the bucktail. Let me see if I can, there we go, and hit the bucktail like this. Right, that's exaggerated, but you see how the thread is that much far forward on the bucktail. All that's going to do is force it to collapse straight down. It's not what he's after, right? That's not what we're after. We want some flare there, and when he does a traditional a bulkhead, he wants to control that bend back. So what he does, and what we're going to do, is he does that by building up a thread ramp closer and closer and more against that bucktail. And as you continue to wrap it up, you're creating a ramp. So you can play with this. You can have as much flare or as little flare as you want by how much of that ramp that you're creating with the thread. Because we don't want all of this, right? We want some, we don't want all of it. So I think it's going to be easier to cut this if we can kind of get it to stand back out. I think me holding it back as tight as I was to make sure it didn't get in the way of my thread has artificially bent it back a little bit more than normal. So let's see if we can recapture a little bit. I don't want to go too far. From here, I want to trim it down about half of that distance. So we'll say right about that. Hopefully that's not too short. There. And don't get me wrong, there's probably a lot, well, there's definitely easier ways to get flare on a jig. I'm not saying that this is the only way, and certainly not the only way, or I'm not saying that it's even the best way. I just find that if we can try new things as lure makers and try to challenge ourselves to use materials in ways that we don't typically use them, that's only going to make us better. Now I am going to pull it back and watch the flare on this guy so that I don't get it too far down. I think I like that right there. I don't think I'd go any more than that. All right, now we are finally ready to put our claws in. These are normally for me on a half-ounce jig with a 5/0 hook. These are going to be 3 inches long, and I tie them in on that middle collar. This is a noticeably shorter hook, smaller head, so I trimmed off a 1/4 inch. So this is 2 3/4, and we're going to tie it in at the front. So all in all, it's probably going to look like about a 2.5 inch profile. So I've already taken some hair off of the leather right there at the front. Make it a little better tie-in point. There we go. There. And already you can see how much that bucktail forces those claws out, which I think makes for a really nice craw profile. Now from here, we are going to put another 2 layers of bucktail on. We're going to start on the bottom though. So let's grab our orange and cut out another piece. Again, right in that middle zone, it's kind of the butter zone of the tail. I'm looking to go not quite as long as our original bucktail, just short of that. Let's go ahead and get this on. same idea. Some more of this dark olive bucktail. Mine fell apart, as you can see. Alright, got my other bucktail here. I'm looking to see lengthwise. This is the other bucktail's coming all the way out beyond the shaft of my vise here, so I think just beyond the hook point looks pretty good. I'm going to split that, and I almost put it way out there. Put it right about there. I want you to pull this bucktail up, but do not cut it. So pull it up, a couple wraps in the back, keep it in place, but don't cut it. So before we go too much further, this guy needs a weed guard. So I have a wire weed guard here. It's got a curved end, so I'm going to take some pliers and straighten that out real quick. And then I'm going to put a small bend in just the end. So now I have a little flat L, right? That L goes towards the hook and is going to go in to the jig, or onto the jig I should say, and be glued in place right there. So let me grab my Gorilla Glue here, super glue. I'm going to put just the smallest little dab right here. Doesn't take much. Just like that. Alright. Place that wire guard right there. The little L straight down. Right on top of the glue. Alright. Now I'm just going to wrap that up and get it nice and secure. Now, from here, I want to cover up these threads. I think I like as much of a buggy crayfish look as possible, so I'm going to go to that natural fur, and I'm going to use the olive hare's mask right here. So I'm going to get some thread out and some dubbing wax, right? And put a little dubbing wax on my thread. Even though this is 210 denier flat waxed nylon, this is stickier stuff designed to hold on to fine material dubbing, that kind of thing. We're not going to do a dubbing loop, although you could. I'm just going to grab little bits of it and spin it on. I'm just going to take it in my hands, put the dubbing on the line, and just twist it on. I actually kind of like a little extra because we can go the next step, which we will here in a second, and comb this out. We can kind of pick at it and make it look real nice and buggy. So that's it, guys. I'm going to whip finish right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whip finish that guy. There. Cut it. Go ahead and get our little dubbing tool. This little stand flow. It's got a comb on one end and some Velcro on the other. You guys have seen this. And just kind of pick at it and make that dubbing nice and buggy. Last step, well, last couple steps here. We need to bend our weed guard forward so we can work with the rest of this bucktail. Put the flat part of my scissors, you know, either in here or wherever, flat part of the scissors, right against it, and just bend it forward. Just like that. And last but not least, we need to trim this bucktail. So I left it because when you have bucktail that extends, especially on a slope like that, it's got a natural slope from the Arky head, you can utilize that bucktail to make a crawfish tail really easily. So I find that these curved scissors are perfect. Get it nice and flared out. And now I'm gonna have to go sideways on this guy. Keep it in the vise so you guys can see. Normally I would take this out of the vise at this point and just do it by hand, but I'm going to keep it in there, see if we can do it sideways. As always, you can always cut more, so start with less. Utilize the curve, if you have it, of your scissors, and you can kind of gauge the size of the tail based on the profile of the jig. So if you've got a big bulky jig, it makes sense to have a bigger tail. If you've got a smaller finessey kind of jig, then it makes sense to have more of a finessey tail. I'm going to get this guy out of the vise. I'll probably hit it with a little bit of water-based head cement just around the threads that I can see there. Make sure that that's good to go. I'll get some pictures and some close-ups for you, and then we will be taking this guy over into the test tank. Well, did you see extra flare? Granted, I'm probably a little biased, but I could have swore that I saw some extra flare, at least as compared to when I normally tie those rabbit zonkers in right to the collar. But you guys be the judge. I think it was an exercise well worth it, even if it didn't make a huge difference. We were using familiar materials in new and exciting ways, growing as a lure maker. So hope you guys enjoyed today's video, got some value out of it. If you'd like to see some more lure making just like this, you click on this video right here. If you're curious why I call the channel SDG, you click on this video right here. Otherwise, until the next time, I'll see you guys at the vise.